You know, they're developing ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missile. Why in heaven's name does Iran need intercontinental ballistic missiles? They don't need those missiles to reach Israel. They need it to reach Europe and the United States.
As Republicans settle in for another long fight against immigration, word has it the nation of Israel may be considering a fight of another kind, one designed to take out a nuclear threat before it even happens. Let's welcome to MidPoint legal analyst and expert, political commentator and activist, part of the Newsmax Insiders family, also author of Terror Tunnels, the case for Israel's just war against Hamas, Alan Dershowitz. Alan, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Alan, let's get right to it. In the Jerusalem Post this weekend, Israel reconsiders military action against Iran, which would indicate a first strike. Would the Israelis really contemplate such a battle?
Well, if the alternative is to allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons, they've already sworn they would use them to annihilate Israel. The former moderate President Rafsanjani once said that if Iran develops nuclear weapons and drops a bomb on Tel Aviv, it will kill 3 million Jews, and that Israel will retaliate and drop a bomb on Tehran, killing 10 million Muslims, but the trade-off would be worth it because it would destroy the Jewish state, but the Muslim religion would still survive. You cannot allow a country with leaders like that to have access to nuclear weapons. They killed tens of thousands of their own children during the Iraq-Iranian war by sending them to certain death over minefields. They are a suicide nation. They're the world's greatest exporter of terrorism. And so Israel may have no choice. Really, it's all up to the United States. Will President Obama be Winston Churchill and Neville Chamberlain? If he allows Iran to develop nuclear weapons or even to become a threshold nuclear state, he will be remembered by history as the Neville Chamberlain of history, the man who brought health care to Britain, but who failed to recognize and prevent the greatest danger of the 20th century, namely Nazism. And the greatest danger of the 21st century is a nuclear-armed Iran with intercontinental ballistic missiles that could reach New York and Washington.
Are Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Secretary of State being played for fools at this point by the Iranian government?
Well, I think they're playing themselves a little bit for fools by saying that we need Iran to help us defeat ISIS. That's total nonsense. Iran needs us to defeat ISIS. ISIS poses no direct, immediate threat to the United States other than terrorism. And even if we destroy them on the ground, the threat of terrorism will persist. But ISIS poses an enormous threat to Shia Islam and to Iran, which is the major Shia country. So we shouldn't be giving concessions, nuclear concessions to Iran to get them on board the fight with ISIS. They should be making concessions to us to get us on board to help them fight ISIS. So the United States government has it absolutely backwards.
I apologize for my failure not to get John Kerry's name in there, but I also wanted to make that in, and you, of course, made the point. But with regard to an actual strike by Israel, though, Alan, would that not be a disaster if you think about how quickly that would spread throughout the Middle East, the powers it would bring in the United States, Russia, China, Pakistan, so many others? This would seem to be a conflagration that perhaps once started, we may not be able to pull back.
Well, it's the second worst solution. The first worst solution is to allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. And if the only choices are Iran developing nuclear weapons or Israel doing what it did to the Asarik nuclear reactor in 1981, destroying Saddam Hussein's nuclear capacity, or what it did to the Syrian nuclear reactor several years ago, then it is a least worst alternative. And one would hope the United States would see that as well, because the United States could totally destroy Iran's nuclear capacity. Israel can only set it back for a few years.
Then about 40 seconds we have left. Then, in your opinion, why do we not do that? Why do we not have the spine to then walk into Iran, do what it takes, and make sure that the nuclear bomb itself is not an Iranian weapon?
I think the United States should announce that unequivocally we are, as our policy, against Iran developing nuclear weapons. We will do whatever it takes to prevent it. If sanctions work, fine. If diplomacy works, fine. If none of that works, then the United States should use its military facilities and ability to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons, yes.
Does Israel have enough, militarily speaking, if they were to stage a first strike, to defeat Iran quickly?
Well, to destroy parts of the nuclear facility, to set them back 2, 3, 5 years, yes. To set them back permanently, probably not, because Israel doesn't have the same kind of bunker-busting capabilities that the United States has. So, look, the best solution is a diplomatic one, sanctions, European community. But the worst solution is to allow Iran to become even a threshold nuclear state.
All right, Alan, please stand by. Major cities and small towns alike wait for the decision from Ferguson, Missouri. A peek behind the legal curtain with Alan Dershowitz after we take a break and come back, because as everyone waits, the grand jury still has not come through with a decision.